My sister used my name to fall in love with the crown prince. On the night of the grand wedding, the crown prince discovered he had married the wrong person. My sister he loved set a great fire and burned herself to death. Because of this, the crown prince hated me extremely, favoring his concubine and neglecting his wife. Even when I was seriously ill, he never stepped into my room. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to the day the emperor bestowed the marriage. When asked if I had a favored suitor, I replied, "Your Majesty, I have long admired Princess Yen. I hope you can fulfill my wish." As soon as the words fell, the usually indifferent and arrogant crown prince crushed the wine cup in his hand. Ding! webnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. When I was dying, I looked back on my life, ultimately stopping at the day of the bestowed marriage. Memories were like faded scrolls. The emperor smiled and asked me if I had a favored suitor. At that time, I rose and slowly knelt down, and no one could see the panic in my heart. I knew what I had to say. Before attending the banquet, my mother told me that the emperor intended to bestow marriage between me and the crown prince. The glory of the entire family and the future of the household rested entirely on me at this moment. But who could have thought that I would end up vomiting blood and dying? Watching the tragedy become irreversible, with the sword hanging above about to fall. I was anxious. Just before speaking, I suddenly regained my senses, no longer a powerless spectator. The words fell faster than my thoughts. "Your Majesty, I have long admired Princess Yen. I hope you can fulfill my wish." The hall was brightly lit, and the sound of silk and bamboo filled the air. I lightly trembled as I touched my heart. There was no long-standing pain. After vomiting blood and dying, I was reborn. Yet the usually indifferent and arrogant crown prince crushed the wine cup in his hand. On the night of the grand wedding in my past life, I had not yet drunk the wedding wine when the news of my sister's self-immolation arrived. The Sierra residence was in ruins, with broken walls and remnants everywhere. My sister's personal maid knelt before me, crying uncontrollably. Before Miss died, she asked me to inquire of you. Among the thousands of men in the world, why did you have to steal her beloved? Saying this, she took out a letter and presented it to the crown prince. The one who shared mutual affection with you has always been our second miss, not the crown princess. What the crown prince said then, I can't remember, only his pale complexion and furious eyes. From then on, I was merely a crown princess in name. The concubines and consorts gradually filled the eastern palace. And everyone knew the crown prince was heartless towards me. Initially, I could still comfort myself. Until the crown prince took in a concubine who greatly resembled my sister, loving her like a treasure. It was late autumn when that concubine claimed the jade hairpin the crown prince gave her was lost by me. She pointed at the icy pool water, laughing coquettishly. Right here, the crown princess pushed me, and the hairpin fell in. The crown prince glanced at me indifferently. Trouble the crown princess to retrieve Wan Wan's jade hairpin. Wan Wan. My sister was named Sierra Wan. He then named this concubine Shen Wan, reminding him daily, and reminding me as well. Between us, there was a life. No matter how I tried to make amends, it was all in vain. Suddenly, I felt weary, unwilling to deal with his petty tricks, and turned to leave. A letter was suddenly thrown at my feet. It was filled with criticisms of my father, densely packed. Whether to present it to the emperor or to hold it back, all depends on how you act. The crown prince admired my dilemma, resting his chin in his hand, a cold smile curving his lips. I glanced at the two in the pavilion, gritted my teeth, and jumped into the icy pool water. Bone-chilling cold. When I thought I would die today, I finally found that jade hairpin. The crown prince looked at my disheveled state, and casually threw the letter into the charcoal brazier. Then he embraced Shen Wan tenderly. "Wan Wan, don't be angry anymore, look, the hairpin has been retrieved. But I no longer like it." The crown prince chuckled playfully. The hairpin fell to the ground with a crisp sound, shattering into several pieces. "If Wan Wan doesn't like it, then discard it." The fine, bone-chilling cold seeped into my bones. I shivered, looking at the jade hairpin I had painstakingly retrieved, suddenly feeling a sharp pain in my heart. I coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood. Wei Yan was dressed in a deep purple robe with flowing cloud patterns. the collar loose, revealing a cold white collarbone. His slender fingers were playing with a wine cup. Hearing my resolute reply, he was momentarily stunned, and pointed at himself with his index finger. "Ah. Are you fond of me?" Truly a frivolous libertine. Compared to the dignified and courteous crown prince nearby, he was even more outrageous. Yet the young man was born with an androgynous beauty. His smile breathtakingly stunning. "Miss Xia, do you truly have feelings for me?" I slightly raised my eyes, forcing a blush and showing a shy demeanor. The emperor's mouth twitched, and he spoke. "My son is accustomed to being unruly. Perhaps you should reconsider." I endured the burning anger in my mother's gaze and bowed again. "Your Majesty, I will marry none other than Princess Yen." The palace servants changed the wine cup for the crown prince. But he remained motionless, staring deeply at me. "Your Majesty, I think this matter is inappropriate." The emperor said. "Oh?" The crown prince lowered his eyes and said calmly. "Third brother's temperament is unstable, not suitable for marriage." Yet Wei Yan, worthy of being a troublemaker, remained unfazed by the crown prince's direct opposition. He smiled and said, as the saying goes, first establish a family, then a career. "Once I am married, won't my temperament stabilize?" The crown prince glanced at him, his eyes dark. Naturally, he thought I was in love with him and would obstruct this marriage. "Father, I assure you, if I marry, I won't cause any trouble for the next year, no, 3 years. He set aside the wine cup, sitting upright, appearing somewhat serious. The emperor gave him a look and then turned to me. "It's hard to deny your deep affection, but have you thought it through?" I affirmed once more. The emperor did not immediately grant me marriage to Princess Yen. Princess Yen was the son of the noble consort. Although he was about the same age as me, his reputation was vastly different. I was dignified and virtuous, he was arrogant and unruly. I was skilled in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. He didn't know a word of the classic works. He caused trouble all day, acting with impunity, and the noble ladies in the capital turned pale at the mention of him, fearing he would take a liking to them. Upon returning home, my mother could no longer hold back. "Riyue, do you realize your mistake?" "What mistake have I made?" My mother, furious, stood up. "You knew the emperor intended to grant you marriage to the crown prince. Why did you publicly declare your affection for Princess Yen? Even though the emperor hasn't decreed your marriage yet. Marrying into the Eastern Palace is now as difficult as ascending to heaven." I laughed softly. That was truly wonderful. My father, who had been silent, saw me laugh and angrily slammed the table. "You can still laugh? Tomorrow, your mother will take you to the palace to see the empress. You must apologize sincerely, perhaps there is still hope." I replied calmly, "I will not go, nor will I marry the crown prince." My father's face stiffened, then he became furious. "How dare you? Marriage is a serious matter, not for you to decide at will." My mother frowned and said, "Do you know what kind of person Princess Yen is? A troublemaker. Any girl with a prominent family in the capital avoids him." I lifted my gaze, sweeping over the two of them. Once, I thought my parents were loving, my sister clever. The greatest happiness in the world was nothing more than this. So no matter how much I suffered in the Eastern Palace, enduring countless grievances, I could persevere. Until a month before my death, I accidentally discovered my sister's feigned death. My father knew, my mother knew. Only I did not know. While I was suffering in the Eastern Palace, the three of them were happily united in the Xia residence. They clearly knew how much pain my sister's death caused me. Yet upon learning of my sister's whereabouts, they chose to hide it. The former Xia Riyue followed the rules, engraved virtue and kindness into her bones, and regarded family honor as everything. Yet she ended up being bullied by everyone. Living again, I want none of this. What does it matter if he's a troublemaker? I am fond of him, naturally, I don't care about those baseless rumors. My father was so angry his face turned pale, his voice trembling. Good, good. I didn't know I raised such a shameless daughter. Not just one. I smiled. Sister was ill today and didn't attend the banquet, so father probably doesn't know. I sighed. The crown prince and sister have long been involved, privately pledged to each other. Upon hearing this, both my father and mother were stunned. My sister's yard has become noisy, and I'm afraid it won't be peaceful for the next few days. I took the opportunity to leave the manor. In the dark alley, Wei Yan was already waiting for me. The entanglement between us started in our past lives. In the early years, the noble consort was sent to the cold palace. And she was particularly indifferent to Wei Yan, almost causing him to die from illness. It was I who invited the imperial physician to save his life. A life-saving grace should be repaid with one's own life. Hearing my footsteps, Wei Yan turned around, with a half-smile. "Xie Ruyue, do you really want to marry me?" I nodded. "I saved your life, you helped me leave the Xie family, and we're even." He raised his eyebrows, "So all that affection, and I won't marry anyone but you." "It's all fake." Wei Yan nodded, as if he expected it. "Just before leaving," he said, "I thought you would never want to escape the Xie family in this life." His peach blossom eyes were rarely serious, carrying a sense of inquiry. I was momentarily stunned. Memories came rushing back. In the past life, during the autumn hunt, a great fire broke out, followed by assassins. The crown prince had no intention of caring for me. It was Wei Yan who drew his sword, cut down burning trees, killed groups of assassins, and took me further and further away. The palms held together were incredibly hot. Almost exhausted, Wei Yan gasped and smiled at me, suggesting we take the opportunity to run away. To leave this place of trouble forever. How tempting. Just a little more, and I would have escaped with him. "Xie Ruyue." The crown prince's voice came from behind. My breath caught, and I stiffly turned my head. The crown prince sat on horseback, inscrutable, with a cold expression. He asked me only one question. "Do you not want the Xie family anymore?" I slowly released Wei Yan's hand. In his indescribable gaze, I retreated step by step to the crown prince's side. Under the immense fear and sadness, even tears dried up. Like thousands of times before, I admitted my mistake to the crown prince, begging for his forgiveness. The crown prince did not speak, but pulled me onto the horse, his gloomy gaze sweeping over Wei Yan. He gave a provocative smile. "In my past life, I voluntarily walked into the cage for the Xie family. In this life, I live only for myself." Upon returning to the Xie manor, I unexpectedly encountered the crown prince. "Ruyue." The crown prince frowned, grabbing my wrist. "Why do you want to marry Princess Yan? Is there something you can't speak about?" I expressionlessly released his grip. "Your Highness has mistaken me for someone else. The one you long for is not me, but my sister." The crown prince was stunned, incredulous. "She is young and mischievous, pretending to be me and having a relationship with your Highness. This matter, your Highness should not yet know." "No." His face turned dark. "You're deceiving me for Princess Yan, aren't you?" I laughed. "Since your Highness doesn't believe, why not enter the manor and see for yourself?" Xie Ruan was arguing with our parents. How could I miss such a good show? Just as I stepped into my sister's yard, I heard my father's anxious inquiry. "The crown prince clearly wants to marry your sister. How did you develop feelings for the crown prince?" I pretended to be my sister to meet the crown prince. "Anyway, the one his Highness loves is me. The one he wants to marry is also me." Beside me, the crown prince's breathing trembled slightly, his face pale. Before he could say anything, Xie Ruan choked up and spoke. "My admiration for the crown prince is true. If such feelings are intolerable, Ruan can only apologize with death." Saying this, she was about to hit the wall. The crown prince had yet to recover, but instinctively stepped forward to pull her, holding her protectively. His eyes overflowed with tenderness. At this point, the truth was clear. "Your Highness?" Xie Ruan's eyes were full of tears, incredulous. "Those poems, were they actually written by you for me?" The crown prince held her, his tone carrying a hint of probing. Xie Ruan lowered her eyes, hiding a fleeting guilty look. "The one who met your Highness has always been Ruan." She answered evasively. "The one who met the crown prince was her. But those poems were stolen from me." Yet I did not expose her, instead watching the increasingly complex expression on the crown prince's face. After making a choice, he raised his head and said solemnly, "Rawan and I are mutually in love. Tomorrow I will ask my father for a decree to marry, ensuring Rawan's reputation remains intact." A trace of joy flashed in Rawan's eyes. Father's heavy expression relaxed slightly. Rawan wants a title, father wants reputation. This commotion finally fulfilled their wishes. "Sister?" Rawan finally saw me, and she instinctively stood up straight, looking somewhat guilty. I chuckled softly, "Congratulations, sister, on getting what you wished for." Rawan hid behind the crown prince, looking aggrieved. The crown prince's gaze fell on me, somewhat cold. "However, I'm curious, how did you find out about the matter between Rawan and me?" I replied nonchalantly, "If you want no one to know, then don't do it." The crown prince's face turned even more unpleasant. He sneered and said to my father, "I see your eldest daughter is quite sharp-tongued." Father lowered his head and secretly glared at me. "It's my failure to discipline her properly. I will punish her by making her kneel in the ancestral hall to reflect on her mistakes. I have always been restrained and respectful, and have never been severely punished before. In the past, it was always the troublemaking Rawan who knelt in the ancestral hall. Now, seeing her about to become the crown princess, I, the one who reported the matter, have become the sinner." But I simply curled my lips, showing neither grievance nor anger. "That's not possible, I have to go boating with Princess Yen later." "You?" Father glared at me, his face flushed with anger. "Rebellious daughter, you still have the nerve to say that." I sighed helplessly. "Princess Yen has a bad temper. If he doesn't see me at the appointed time, he might come to the mansion to find me." At this moment, I was grateful for Wei Yan's notorious reputation. With the emperor's favoritism, he acted recklessly. Even the crown prince couldn't do anything about him. Just after I spoke, a series of footsteps approached. The steward ran over, wiping his sweat, and stopped just in time, trembling as he said, "Master, Princess Yan's guards are outside the mansion. Saying if they don't pick up the eldest lady, they'll tear down the Xia mansion's roof." Everyone present, except for me, looked extremely unpleasant. Rawan thought with the crown prince's support, she could easily manipulate me. Unfortunately, her plan fell through. I perfunctorily performed a courtesy. "Ruiwei takes her leave. Have you been spying on me?" In the pleasure boat, I met Wei Yan's gaze. Boating was just a random excuse. Wei Yan's people showed up at just the right time. I don't believe in coincidences. Sure enough, Wei Yan smiled and said, "Yes, I helped you once, shouldn't you thank me?" "Thank you." I replied indifferently, "How long do you plan to keep spying?" Wei Yan seemed to ponder for a moment, resting his chin on his hand, staring straight at me. "Until the day your long-cherished wish is fulfilled." I was silent for a moment. "How do you know I have a long-cherished wish?" Wei Yan's smile was extremely charming. He picked up a folding fan and pointed towards my chest. "Hatred fills your heart, 1,000 resentments in your eyes, hard to hide even a bit." I instinctively touched the corner of my eye. "I can't hide my hatred? You'd rather marry me than the crown prince. So, who are you hating? Is it hard to guess?" The young man smiled mischievously, his gaze unwaveringly on my face. I lowered my eyelids, pondered for a while, and nodded. "Yes, I hate him." Seeing my honesty, Wei Yan's smile deepened. He personally poured me a cup of tea. "The imperial decree for our marriage will arrive at the Xia mansion tomorrow. People say husband and wife are one, naturally I have to help you." I looked up and met those beautiful eyes, filled with inquiry and scrutiny. "Are you really willing to offend the true crown prince for a fake wife?" Wei Yan's smile was cold, his voice like pearls and jade. "The empress nearly forced my mother and me to death in the cold palace back then. This revenge, I must take." Such words, indeed, put me at ease. 2 imperial edicts of marriage arrived at the Xia residence simultaneously. Rawan's wedding date was set for August 8th. My wedding date was a month later. It happened to be on the birthday of both Rawan and me. "Sister, do you regret it?" Rawan couldn't hide the pride and joy in her expression. I retorted, I'm just curious, why did you pretend to be me and get acquainted with the crown prince? We are twins. We resemble each other about 70%. When we were young, my sister often played the game of switching identities. But she was too lively to keep up the act for long before our parents would recognize her. Upon hearing this, Sierra Juan's eyes darkened, and she bit her lip. In the capital, everyone knows you are gentle and virtuous, and the foremost talented woman. Since childhood, I've never been able to match you in anything. Even the crown prince's bride chosen by the empress was me. Sierra Juan sneered. But this time, I finally won. So that's how it is. Because of my reputation, Sierra Juan lied. I looked at her and softly said, "But sister, stolen things are destined not to last." Sierra Juan was slightly stunned, then angrily wanted to say something. I wasn't interested in listening, so I turned and left. The royal residence hosted a banquet, with young women sitting together. During this period, Wei Yan and I were in frequent contact, completely ignoring others' opinions. The reputation I once had was gradually becoming less favorable. Sierra Juan was the future crown princess. Her status and position were different from before, and she was treated like a star wherever she went. Those ladies who used to surround me were now around Sierra Juan. They praised her clothes and jewelry, making Sierra Juan laugh continuously. Don't tease me, it's not that I'm stingy. But this gold hairpin was a gift from the crown prince, and it mustn't be damaged. The crown prince is truly devoted to you, giving you such precious jewelry. The jade embedded in it was smooth and white. I didn't want to look at it again. In my past life, the crown prince personally placed that gold hairpin on me and took me to greet the empress. But upon returning to the Eastern Palace, he made me kneel in the cold ancestral hall and copy scriptures all night. He wanted me to atone to Sierra Juan. Indeed, Rowan is truly blessed. Unlike your sister, who clearly could, truly has eyes but can't see. Who knows, maybe the two have had a secret affair for a long time. And what dignified talented woman, who knows what disgraceful things she does behind the scenes. In the past, it was really hard to see that she had such seductive skills. Several people laughed together. Just as I was contemplating whether the wine in my hand was enough to pour over each person's head, the screen dividing the seats was split open by a sword. A young man in a luxurious purple robe, with a captivating face that enchanted the soul. But no one could ignore the long sword in his hand to appreciate his beauty. What are you talking about? Let me hear too. The ladies who spoke earlier shrank together in fear, barely managing not to scream. Wei Yan smiled, but his tone was impatient. Speak. Sierra Juan trembled and instinctively looked at me. I smiled and said, they said I have eyes but can't see, preferring stones over beautiful jade. Wei Yan raised his eyebrows and said, oh? Who is the beautiful jade, and who is the stone? He asked but didn't wait for an answer. He swung his sword directly. The gold hairpin on Sierra Juan's head fell to the ground with a crisp sound. Oh, the beautiful jade is broken. Sierra Juan finally couldn't hold back and started crying. Pointing at Wei Yan with a trembling voice, I am the future crown princess, how dare you? Using the crown prince to suppress me? Wei Yan's smile was icy. Guess if those words were spread. Could you clean up the reputation of being disrespectful to your elder sister and gossiping? After all, she was just a 17-year-old girl. She didn't dare gamble her reputation. Wei Yan also had a notorious reputation. No one dared to come forward to criticize him. Sierra Juan swallowed her anger, but her gaze towards me carried a hint of fierceness. Sierra Yue. When did I ever teach you to bully your younger sister outside? How did you become so unruly? Father's face was full of anger and disappointment. Sierra Juan sat to the side, crying and sobbing. It was she who misspoke and displeased Princess Yan. What does that have to do with me? Father became even more furious seeing my indifferent demeanor. How dare you argue? Not only did you not stop Princess Yan, but you also fanned the flames. I suppressed the annoyance and fatigue rising in my heart. She was the one who disrespected her elder sister first. Does father truly believe it's my fault? Father furrowed his brows but didn't immediately refute me. Miss Xia, you are indeed eloquent. A voice came from behind. It was the crown prince. He entered the hall and gently wiped away Sierra Juan's tears. but I cannot stand to see my beloved suffer grievances. Lord Xia, regarding yesterday's matter, I must seek justice for Rowan. Father closed his eyes, then opened them again, raising his voice. Bring the family discipline. Xia Rowan exclaimed softly, wouldn't that be too harsh? The crown prince sighed lightly. You are too kind-hearted, which is why people take advantage of you. I looked at the soft whip presented by the maid. Not seeking help from Wei Yan's secret agents, but looking at Father. Does Father truly want to punish me? Father's face was stern as he picked up the soft whip. The answer was obvious. In my past life, I died too quickly to confront my parents. Now, there's no need. I chuckled lightly. Fine, after this, I owe you nothing. As the whip fell, Xia Rowan turned her head away in shock. The crown prince held her in his arms, not letting her witness this disgraceful scene. After 10 lashes, my maid, Xiaolan, with tears in her eyes, came forward to support me. I felt the sharp, burning pain on my back, but I wasn't too upset. The debt of upbringing is repaid with this. I have nothing more to do with the Xia family. On the day Xia Rowan got married, the capital was filled with joy. Father and mother gave her an extremely generous dowry. The more she had, the less I naturally had. But I was too lazy to argue over these dowries. In the past few months, I used memories from my previous life to note down the clothing, jewelry, and makeup that would be popular in the coming years. Then, I got ahead and made a fortune. Father used to teach me that gold and silver were too vulgar and unimportant. Now, I certainly don't believe such nonsense. In the Eastern Palace, without money or favor, every step is difficult. With enough silver, I can be carefree and unrestrained anywhere. As night fell, I didn't stay at the banquet but quietly slipped away with Wei Yan. As the city lights came on and the city buzzed with noise, the entire capital was lively because of the crown prince's grand wedding. Throwing off the shackles of etiquette, I walked freely on the streets, feeling that everywhere was vibrant and bright. A not-so-delicate but cute rabbit lantern caught my eye. You've been looking at it for a while. Do you like it? I took the lantern without shyness and nodded. A high-born lady must be dignified and elegant, and should never be associated with a roadside rabbit lantern. Between Wei Yan and me, it became a joke. We walked past each stall, the bells under the eaves tinkling, and the lanterns spreading a soft glow, until the dark night sky burst into colorful fireworks. Wei Yan pulled me into a small alley, covering my ears. The noise was instantly shut out. The golden light and fiery glow fell on Wei Yan's handsome face, revealing a smile as gentle as the first thaw of spring snow at the corners of his lips. I looked up and met his gaze. Countless lights and shadows reflected in my eyes, and I couldn't hear anything, only feeling as if a string of beads had broken in my chest. The sound of them hitting the ground was a bit too loud. Wei Yan looked down at me with unprecedented tenderness and seriousness. Just when I thought he was about to say something, Xie Riyue, a hand tightly grasped my arm. Startled, I turned my head to look. It was the crown prince, who should have been in the bridal chamber, standing in front of me, looking panicked and trembling all over. Ever since Xie Riyue publicly declared she wanted to marry Princess Yan, Wei Mo had been in a daze. Initially, he thought Xie Riyue had betrayed him. Later, he learned that the one he was in love with was actually Xie Rowan. But this realization did nothing to lessen his confusion. Instead, it grew stronger. Wei Mo always felt that things shouldn't have turned out that way. Xie Riyue shouldn't be marrying Wei Yan. Yet, the one he truly cared for was clearly Xie Rowan. Perhaps it was because Xie Rowan had pretended to be her sister. Interacting with him, that led him to these thoughts. Wei Mo tried to suppress his inner turmoil, and attempted to interact with Xie Rowan as he had before. But it always felt strange. Because of this strangeness, he grew to despise Xie Riyue. So he constantly found ways to trouble her. Yet Xie Riyue continued to disregard him, carrying on with her antics with Wei Yan. Wei Mo could have suppressed the strangeness and gradually forgotten it. But fate had other plans, as if it were retribution. After he and Xie Rowan were wed, memories came flooding back. Memories of those 3 years with Xie Riyue in a previous life. Those substitutes in the Eastern Palace not only resembled Xie Rowan but also her. Wei Mo could never admit he had feelings for Xie Riyue. So he doubled his efforts to torment her. Until Ruiwe passed away and he discovered Ruiwe's feigned death. Only then did Wei Mo realize it was too late. Ruiwe no longer wanted him. In this life, she chose Wei Yan. As the bridal veil was lifted, Wei Mo ignored Ruiwe's startled gaze and ran outside like a madman. Endless fear engulfed him like a tide. As if he feared being a step too late would lead to something irreparable. Wei Mo found Ruiwe amidst the bustling crowd in a small alley. She was holding a cheap lantern, standing under the fireworks. Intimately close with Wei Yan. Wei Mo felt as if struck by lightning, then recklessly ran forward and grabbed her arm. He suppressed the overwhelming regret, despair, and jealousy in his heart. His voice trembling. Ruiwe. Am I too late? Crown Prince Wei Mo had always been aloof and untouchable. Yet now, like a madman, he disregarded decorum and dignity. Appearing on the night street during his wedding night. Brother, you've got the wrong person. Your bride is waiting for you in the Eastern Palace. Wei Yan said coldly, prying the Crown Prince's hand off mine. Shut up! The Crown Prince's face was almost grotesque, his gaze towards Wei Yan fierce. When did my matters with Ruiwe become any of your business? This was practically turning the world upside down. And Wei Yan, the rightful fiancé, was almost amused by his anger. If you've gone mad, brother, seek a physician. Ruiwe is my bride-to-be, what does she have to do with you? The Crown Prince gritted his teeth. You took advantage of the situation and seduced Ruiwe. I haven't settled the score with you yet. I suddenly laughed. When the Crown Prince appeared here, I realized he too had been reborn. His outrageous behavior in seeking me must mean he knew about Ruiwe's feigned death. I curled my lips and took Wei Yan's hand. Princess Yan and I are deeply in love, how is that seduction? The Crown Prince's expression froze, his voice trembling. No. I know, Ruiwe, you're still angry with me, aren't you? I raised an eyebrow, then turned slightly, standing on tiptoe. I placed a kiss on Wei Yan's cheek. Wei Yan's eyes widened, his breath catching, his hand in mine stiffening. I looked at the Crown Prince. Your Highness, do you still want to watch? The Crown Prince's eyes were bloodshot as if stained by blood, his fists clenched tightly. His expression was one of anger, disbelief, and a hint of grievance. I held Wei Yan's hand, intending to leave. Ruiwe! The Crown Prince called out anxiously, his voice carrying a barely perceptible sob. I've made many mistakes, but give me a chance to make amends, won't you? Power, wealth, affection, I can give you anything. I turned my head, speaking calmly, I don't want those. The Crown Prince's breath hitched. If you truly regret, write a marriage contract with your heart's blood. Maybe then I'll consider forgiving you. The Crown Prince abandoned the Crown Princess on their wedding night, and left the palace alone, making Ruiwe a laughingstock. This enraged the Emperor, who harshly reprimanded the Crown Prince. Unexpectedly, the Crown Prince, as if possessed, not only refused to admit his mistake but also requested permission for a divorce. The Emperor simply confined him to the Eastern Palace to reflect on his actions. It wasn't until the day before my wedding that his confinement was lifted. The Crown Prince rushed to the Xie residence. He appeared pale and haggard, much thinner, completely different from his usual noble arrogance. Ruiwe. He carefully took out a marriage certificate. But it was not written with ink. Instead, it was an eerie dark red. Every word on this is written with the blood from my heart. Can you forgive me? I reached out and took it, glancing at it casually. It was indeed sincere, each word seemed to cry blood. I laughed disdainfully and casually tore the marriage certificate into pieces, scattering them with a wave. The Crown Prince's figure swayed, his face turning even paler. I was deceiving you, Wei Mo. I shook my head, my gaze filled with pity. What I said that day was just casual talk. No matter how many marriage certificates you write, I will never forgive you. The Crown Prince's voice was hoarse, his eyes bloodshot, and a tear fell. Why? I found his question extremely amusing and laughed out loud. Because you are not worthy. Wei Mo, a despicable and hypocritical person, is not worthy of my forgiveness. Ruiwe's days were not easy. The Crown Prince, who had been so attentive to her yesterday, suddenly changed his demeanor on their wedding night. The glory and love she imagined shattered like that golden hairpin, broken into two. Everyone in the Eastern Palace knew that. The crown princess did not receive the crown prince's favor and was even disliked. Her situation became increasingly difficult. Sierra cried and sought out the crown prince, hoping he would comfort her as he used to. But she only received a cold response. If you're idle, go copy the women's teachings a few times. Even if she was unwilling, Sierra had to admit. The crown prince no longer loved her. Until the day of Sierra's wedding. The crown prince, who was indifferent to her, silently choked back tears and drowned his sorrows in wine when no one was around. Sierra finally understood. The crown prince did not stop loving her. It was just that he never loved her in the first place. Wei Yan took off his purple clothes and wore a wedding dress. Unexpectedly, he washed away her frivolous temperament. His charming and beautiful face became mature and steady. When leaving the Siam mansion, I didn't stop my steps, not turning back even once. From now on, I am just Sierra. On the wedding night, there wasn't the deep affection others imagined. I lifted the veil and went straight to the point. The crown prince is currently in a state of chaos. It's the perfect time for us to overthrow him. Wei Yan's hand froze slightly in midair, then he withdrew it, smiling awkwardly. You're right, but do we really have to discuss this tonight? I looked at him with confusion. Then understood. I didn't expect you to value ceremony so much. A fake marriage, yet the act must be done thoroughly. Wei Yan picked up the wedding wine. Who knows, this might be the only marriage in my life. Of course, it should be perfect. I sighed, drinking the wedding wine with him. It did feel somewhat like a real marriage. The next day, news came from the Eastern Palace that the crown princess passed away last night. My hand holding the chess piece paused slightly. The crown prince is truly ruthless. Letting Sierra die on her birthday. Killing someone to send a message. The Eastern Palace was in mourning. And when I went there, the crown prince was dressed in white, looking emaciated. The door closed behind me. The silent palace had only the two of us. Sierra is dead. The crown prince stroked the coffin and suddenly spoke. The culprit who caused deep misunderstanding between us and couldn't end well is dead. He looked up, with an inexplicable gleam in his eyes. Rui, you and I can start anew. He must be on the verge of madness. The culprit? I chewed over the 4 words, shaking my head. Sierra was indeed hateful. But the root cause of my years of suffering and dying from vomiting blood was you, Waymo. If he had a bit of kindness, he would have found out I was innocent. If he had a bit of patience, he would have listened to my explanation. But he didn't. He arbitrarily sentenced me. Then, tortured me until I died from vomiting blood. I was only 20 when I died. Other young ladies either had their parents by their side or were married. But regardless, their lives were just beginning. Only I was tormented by my husband to the point of being sickly and dying. I longed to live more than anyone. It was Wei Mo who personally extinguished my hope. I am willing to atone. Wei Mo's eyes were bloodshot, his expression agitated, drawing his sword. You can stab me a few times, as long as you forgive me. I smiled slightly, walked slowly to his side, and took the sword. Then mercilessly stabbed it into his shoulder. Wei Mo grunted but forcibly endured the pain, even showing me a smile. I withdrew the sword. With a clang, the sword and blood droplets fell to the ground, bright red and glaring. I pondered. But now I am Princess Yen, the sister-in-law of your highness. Even if I forgive your highness, what then? The crown prince stared at me blankly. Rebel. I said softly. Only those who sit on the dragon throne can get everything they want. Wei Mo, do you dare to go that far for me? Each word was like the most alluring poppy flower. The emperor was gravely ill and ordered the crown prince to oversee the state affairs. This was something that had never happened in the past life. Yet it coincidentally aligned with the crown prince's intentions. The opportunity for rebellion was fleeting. Wei Mo was nearly insane, having long lost his clarity. Half a month later, the crown prince led troops to force the palace. Father, issue the decree. The emperor coughed a few times, his face flushed. You are already the crown prince, why are you so impatient? The crown prince's expression was sinister, and he spoke with a cold smile. What good is it to be the crown prince? I can't even decide on a divorce. Only by sitting on the dragon throne can I act as I please and get everything I want. The emperor closed his eyes, completely disappointed in him. With a clink, the jade pendant fell to the ground. Soldiers hidden in the shadows responded and emerged, and the situation suddenly reversed. The gravely ill emperor stood up, showing no sign of weakness. Throw the crown prince into the dungeon, and for the rest, no mercy. The crown prince's face changed dramatically, and he turned to see Wei Yan and me standing at the hall entrance. In that moment, he understood everything. But it was too late. I went to the dungeon to see Wei Mo for the last time. He was now the deposed crown prince. In the dark and damp prison, the disheveled Wei Mo was babbling insanely. No, don't marry him. How amusing. It was clearly him who forced me to death. Now, he was the one filled with regret. Wei Mo remained indifferent even upon hearing footsteps, until I softly called him Wei Mo. He looked over as if awakening from a dream. His eyes showed joy, and he ran towards me. Ruiwei, you've forgiven me, haven't you? I shook my head. No. I would never forgive him. He should never hope to be freed from the pain and guilt. Through the bars, he grabbed my sleeve, tears streaming down, utterly humble. I'm sorry, Ruiwei, but I truly love you. I stepped back, avoiding his touch. But your love makes me feel disgusted. If you truly feel sorry for me, then go die. My tone was calm and unwavering. Upon hearing this, the hope in Wei Mo's eyes shattered completely, and he laughed and cried. Do you really want me to die? I nodded. In both past and present lives, you have never had good intentions towards me. When I think of you, I only feel pain. The emperor wouldn't kill him, but I wanted him dead. Those old grudges could only be resolved with a life. As I stepped out of the dungeon, I heard the guards exclaim behind me. The deposed crown prince has taken his own life. I looked up at the clouds and birds in the sky, and smiled gently. The emperor had few offspring. After Wei Mo's death, he could only nurture the still young fourth prince. After all, Wei Yan was renowned and openly declared his desire to travel and enjoy life with me, making it impossible for the emperor to appoint him as the crown prince. On the carriage leaving the capital, Wei Yan arrived before me. The originally simple carriage was now lavishly decorated by him. Seeing my surprise, he touched his nose. The capital is too dull, I also want to go to the south with you. You won't drive me away, will you? The young man lowered his eyes. His cautious demeanor paired with his exquisite face made one's heart inexplicably soften. I sat in the carriage, speaking unhurriedly. So what you said about revenge back then? Wei Yan lowered his head even more, his voice barely audible. Not all of it was false. His appearance reminded me of the cat I had as a child. When it made a mistake, it had the same guilty yet stubborn look. I suddenly chuckled softly, my tone gentle. Wei Yan, let's go to the south together. Wei Yan abruptly raised his head, unable to suppress the smile at the corners of his mouth. The daylight was bright, the carriage wheels rolled over the fallen leaves, leaving the majestic imperial city as a speck of dust on the horizon. We have a long life ahead of us.